Hey YouTube, it's Evan Magician 34, and I got a new section for you. It's something I'm gonna try to do every Tuesday, and I'm calling it The Edge. And what that is I'm giving you cards that are unusual picks that are sort of on the cutting edge at the time I make the video of like tech choices for your main deck or your side deck or maybe both. Some of these may be cards you're familiar with and that you've used, and some of them you may never have thought of. The idea is to make you think and consider them, not necessarily say this is right for every single deck, but to say, this is something that's worth considering. And so my first card for the Edge, my kind of inaugural run card, is Trap Eater. Yeah, some of you who've played me before are thinking, yeah, you've seen this the last couple of weeks. This card is actually really good right now. And ever since he came out, you may have noticed if you look closely at like top 32 or top 16 lists at events, you'll see 1 to 2 copies of this guy every now and then in side decks. He comes in and out and he goes around. For those of you who don't know, he's a Dark Fiend monster. He's a 1900, 1600 4-star tuner. And what he does is he can't be normal summoned or set, and he cannot be special summoned except by his effect out of your hand, where he sends one face-up trap your opponent controls to the grave in order to special summon himself. So on the surface, he looks like he might not be that versatile, and obviously he's a side deck card, not a main deck card, but his potential is pretty great. So we're going to go ahead and show you why. I mean, first off, this is one of those cards that it's built for decks with specific fears. Light Imprisoning Mirror and Shadow Imprisoning Mirror are soon to be pretty popular. Light Imprisoning Mirror is already pretty commonly seen. It's a side-in against agents, and if you see Light Sworns, it also works on them. So if you're running agents or Light Sworns, this is a card to fear. It's a continuous trap you know they're going to run, a reason you might want to run Trap Eater. And for the Dark Fiend deck that's going to be Dark Worlds very soon, there's Shadow Imprisoning Mirror, which is also going to be a major pain for you guys. Both of these cards get shut down by Trap Eater, who activates in the hands, not on the field or in the graveyard. So these are cards that Trap Eater thwarts. You know, another card it thwarts? Royal Decree. So if Royal Decree is a big fear of yours, you might want to consider siding Trap Eater. And if you may have a lot of Tech Genis or TG decks in your area, TG Skill Drain is a pretty common and powerful deck. And Skill Drain is awfully hard to stop, but Trap Eater sends this thing to the grave as a cost when he summons himself. So he can get around Skill Drain's effect stopping effect, and basically you can use a monster effect to thwart the card that stops monster effects, which is just awesome. And another card that they commonly run to reinforce the goodness of Trap Eater is Horn of the Phantom Beast, which is still a face-up trap. It doesn't have to be a continuous trap for a Trap Eater to be able to pop it. Another card that can encourage you to side this in is Call of the Haunted. Now, a lot of people run Call of the Haunted, and it's not a reason by itself to side Trap Eater or to side into Trap Eater, but this card is often in concert with these other cards, and Call can be flipped a lot of times to stop a bunch of attacks, and you can go ahead and deny them the monster during your second main phase by go ahead and getting rid of the Call of the Haunted. And cards like Rivalry of Warlords and Gozen Match are other side deck options that you might want to consider if siding him against, if that's something commonly you see in your area. I wouldn't side against this specifically for like a regional or anything. But all of these are things to consider. Yes, alright, right now we're going to go ahead and talk about Trap Eater's biggest rival, Mystical Space Typhoon. A lot of people say Trap Eater's an inferior Mystical Space Typhoon. Well, you're already main decking Mystical Space Typhoon, and Mystical Space Typhoon, part of its job is hitting set cards. The upshot of this basically is MST has some problems that Trap Eater doesn't, and there's no reason you can't run both. I'm main decking 2 MSTs in a lot of decks right now and siding into the third, but I'm also siding Trap Eaters. And I'll go ahead and tell you some of the reasons why. These two guys can actually work very well together as a team. Because after all, MST just pops something, but it doesn't give you this nice little residue of a monster that he does. MST can be thwarted by Stardust Dragon, which a lot of decks run. Trap Eater goes right around him and can usually sink or Xyz for something that will kill the Stardust. Also, Solemn Judgment stops that. Dark Bribe stops that. Solemn Judgment, Solemn Warning, nothing stops him because he's like Lava Golem. He sends things as a cost for his special summon. So it's virtually impossible to stop his ability, which is just amazing. Like, the only way to get around him is to prevent his special summon in the first place via something like Archlord Christia. So those are some more good arguments for him. And if your deck happens to run this guy, or maybe a monster like this guy, then you definitely want to consider Trap Eater, because when you summon these guys, if you see Skill Drain flip, oh, you'll be denied your card. But Trap Eater will suck up that trap that basically these guys force to flip, and then you're going to either sink for 8 or Xyz for 4, which either way is a good thing. And if you didn't have enough reasons already, there are also cards like Thunder King Ryo that this guy combines excellently with, and right there, if you sync with these two guys, you know what that is? That's Chaos Fodder, a light and a dark. So that's for your Chaos Sorcerer or your BLS. And of course, he also goes well with extra copies of Tengu, especially for syncing, not as much for Xyzing, but there you go, nobody's perfect. And one of the other good things about Trap Eater is this guy is a +1. He makes your opponent lose a card, and then he comes out. But you don't lose a card, he just changes where he is. He's, instead of in your hand, he's on your field. If nothing else, he's a 1900 point stick, too, which is quite nice. MST is a 1-for-1 trade. Basically, my argument is this. Let your MSTs do the work on the set cards, let Trap Eater go to work on the face-up cards. There's just so much good you can say for Trap Eater. Like I said, I don't think it needs to be in competition with Mystical Space Typhoon. You need to consider your deck well before you run this. But considering what cards you fear from your opponent, especially in their side deck, like 2 copies of this guy, I would say, would be an excellent consideration. He's very much an underestimated card, and he can give you the edge. So until next time, rate, comment, subscribe, and check out my channel for more cool videos.